Hi, this is Micornus, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. We'll deal with part 4 today of this great topic that speaks about factors that cause leaders to scatter churches. Factors that cause leaders to scatter churches. And today I want to embark on lack of vision and purpose. Lack of vision and purpose is one of the factors that cause leaders to scatter churches. Many who find themselves in church leadership positions by crook and hook, they have surely not embraced God's vision for their local church. And these are type of visionaries sometimes that have opened churches because they have seen their friends opening churches. They have opened churches because of peer pressure. They want to compete with their own buddies and cronies, and they open churches for that reason. And sometimes they open churches because they want positions of power. It's power mongering and power hunger that makes them to actually open churches. And some of the people open churches because they are seeing a church as an easier way of making money. Now, for that reason, you'll find people that lead churches, but yet they lack what we call vision. And they don't have a purpose actually of leading a church. For that reason, that will make the church not be sustainable at all. And most of the churches actually crumble and die purely because of lack of vision and purpose. Now, I want to emphasize that if they do this type of pastors, they will never play politics to get there. And if they have vision, because when somebody's getting into leadership position by hook and crook, they pushing their way out, it's purely because they don't have vision. Because as somebody with a vision, generally they don't push. They don't actually force themselves in there because they know that God has called them and they've got a vision and they've got a purpose as well. So because of that, there's nothing that pushes them to make themselves to be known or impose on other people's positions. And I must emphasize that it's only those that do not have visions. Now, leaders that lack God's vision for the church will never lead such church beyond their own nose. They will never lead that church any progressive, because remember that the church is a spiritual entity, and it starts with God calling a man or a woman and to run a particular cause, which is a purpose or what we call a vision. Now, without a vision, of course, then people perish. And we will never have a church that will run articulately well without a vision. And that is why a church leader should actually be equipped with a church vision, because without a vision, then the church is going nowhere. And this is very, very important that we emphasize that the church should start with a vision upon a human being that God has called. And God instilled that vision, and that vision makes them to be able to run with direction at all times, because there are times when the road is not easy. It is difficult and you may not have clarity of the vision. But when you have got a vision in the beginning, you'll be able to push, because vision always actually encourages and give a guide. And because it's the shining light ahead of you that makes you to continue even when it's difficult to do so. It is very, very important that the vision therefore becomes very, very primary. Now, a leader that cannot express vision nor display purposeful commitment to the future of the church will surely scatter the church. And that is why I emphasize that it should be the vision that drives the pastor. It must be the vision that drives the leader. Because without the vision, you're going to get tired along the way. You're going to be getting discouraged along the way, and you'll find yourself finding it difficult to continue when you don't have a vision, because a vision has got some fuel in it that will fuel your energy to continue just because of the vision. When it is difficult to go, when it's difficult to go up the hill and it's steep, and you are going to be helped particularly by the vision that will carry you through despite of the difficulties that you're faced with. And I'm emphasizing this because, of course, we know that a vision is very key in driving the purpose for one to continue when it's difficult to do so. Now, the next aspect that I want to deal with, the factor that will cause leaders to scatter churches, is when what we call prejudice against learning. When somebody's prejudiced against learning or has got a negative attitude against learning, when somebody's unteachable in nature, for instance, leaders that use church positions to shield themselves from continuous education will actually inadvertently bring ruin to their church itself. Because it's by learning and learning every day that we grow to know. And we learn actually tricks of how to run a ministry itself. And some of the churches are actually dying because the leaders have not allowed themselves to learn. They've not allowed themselves to actually mature along the way in their ministry, to become better in what they are doing. This is very key. And we're emphasizing it because without the learning, then your church will remain stagnant. And a church that remains stagnant is likely to go and scatter and die because without learning, therefore, you cannot progress. And there are those that actually hide behind church positions. They don't want to learn. They don't want to study. They don't want to read. And that's very, very important that we look at it and say, every minister should at least go to Bible college, should at least go to Bible studies, because you need to learn and know. You need to learn not only the word of God, but also administrative side of the church itself. And that needs learning. And people that are not actually embarking in learning in this regard, you're going to remain stagnant, and you'll find that your church cannot progress. And when a church is stagnant, it's likely to die, because that's the problem that we have in some of the leaders. So I want to emphasize that learning is very, very important. And without learning, then you are killing your church. People who see the church title and position as too high to submit to learning of any kind will never lead the church beyond their title, their little knowledge and wisdom. And therefore, if your title is too big for you to sit in class again to learn, you're actually killing your own ministry. It is very important then, therefore, that we emphasize that as individuals, as leaders, we learn that we run a church by knowledge of every day, by learning every day and becoming better, because times are changing. And we can see now that there's a lot of technology coming into play. We cannot ignore these things. We must actually be ready to learn and do things better. And if you're not ready to learn, you're going to have a problem in the sense of you're not going to progress, because things are actually changing every day. And as I said, if you see your church not beyond your little knowledge, you're going to lack wisdom to run it. You're going to lack wisdom actually to progress the church, because you need to learn and to study. Most leaders that scatter churches are those who are too proud to learn. And those are too proud to relearn or to even unlearn some habits. And they want to stick to their own habits. And they don't want to unlearn things, and therefore they want to remain on the same old way of doing things. And therefore, because of that, they are actually ruining the church itself. Many things in ministry are evolving. Many things in ministry are evolving as our communities and our society is evolving, as the global village is actually evolving as well. So therefore, it is very important that the Church of God evolves in many of the things on how to do gospel. How to do church must evolve as well. It is very, very important. We don't say evolve in the word, because the word itself should not change. The word of God shall remain. But how to do church, how to run a church, how to administer a church should evolve, should change in these days that we're living in. Because as you can see, as I said, technology has taken charge, and you cannot ignore that space of technology. And hence we're recording these materials right now in YouTube and Facebook. We are actually spreading them all over the world for you to learn, to be able to evolve as well, so that your church can become better, and you'll be able to run your church much better, and it will grow and never die, and it will not scatter at all. This is very, very important. Now, most of the time, people that are not ready to learn, they are not ready to unlearn things as well, they feel they are too anointed sometimes. They feel they are positional and gifted. They're very positional, and they're gifted to keep on learning and going for training. Because what am I training? Because I'm anointed already. Now, that neology of thinking that because you are anointed, you don't need knowledge, that is a false doctrine. And I want to emphasize that, please, as a pastor, as a leader, realize that you still need to learn every day. And if you reach a point where you think that you cannot learn anymore, that is the death of you. And please, as a leader, as a visionary, make sure that you learn and learn every day, and don't ever reach a point where you think that you're too anointed to learn anymore. That will be the beginning of the death of your church. And I'm emphasizing that because we've seen people that say, I cannot learn anymore. Therefore, they will scatter their churches spiritually and physically when they do refuse to learn, when they don't want to unlearn things as well. So that's very, very important. Allow me to close with this factor, which speaks about no teamwork, no team spirit. Because when a church is about to scatter, there will be no teamwork. There will be no team spirit at all. And that church is actually having a potential of dying a real death. And I must emphasize that we need to make sure that where there's no teamwork, there's no team spirit, we create one. Because that will actually sustain the church and keep it going. Leadership teams that fail to work together and mutual respect and submission to each other will innovatively as well bring ruin to the church itself. And I must emphasize that when there's a division amongst the leaders, there is no unity amongst the leaders. That is a spell of disaster. That is a recipe of disaster. And therefore, I want to emphasize that there must be unity amongst the leaders. There must be teamwork amongst the leaders. This is very, very important. Church leadership that secretly detests each other and work to pull each other down will never lead their church forward. And I know there are competition spirits in churches. Leaders are competing on positions and who's doing things better. And that is killing the church itself. And I must emphasize that, please, be careful as a leader that you don't detest each other. You don't pull each other down. You therefore support each other because we are in this thing together. And that's and together we shall succeed. So this is very important that we emphasize that. And churches that are having ministers that work together becomes very, very successful. Ministers that scatter churches are lone rangers generally, who find it difficult to delegate or work peacefully with team members. These are the people that are jack of all trades, mainly, but master of none, and they want to do everything on their own. Pastor and leader, you will die quickly if you carry everything on your shoulders. Remember that the work of God needs many people to carry it. And that's why the calling, when you're called actually to delegate other people, to become part of the vision. And together, we're fulfilling this vision and carrying it forward. If you carry everything on your own and become a lone ranger, become a jack of all trades, you are actually causing disaster of scattering the church, because you will die quickly yourself. Be careful as a leader that you don't become a lone ranger and you don't become a jack of all trades either. It is either you choose the wrong team or that you do not encourage teamwork in the ministry. Such churches, they scatter immediately and eventually they die as well. And I want to emphasize this because I know that divisions are very common in churches. I want to end up here today, your host, Micornus Phokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and being part of this great topic. And I hope you've learned quite a bit out of this. You will make use of this material. Remember, our YouTube channel, subscribe on it. We have got other more materials that we've posted over the years, and you will learn out of that. Make sure you do so. Our Facebook page, Micornus Phokane, and Church Governance Solutions, please like those Facebook pages. Make sure that you are able to be notified as well by clicking the notification button, and you will be notified when we've posted materials, and you will learn out of that as well. Allow me to check out right here and say, your host, Micornus Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions, and I'm checking out. Join us as we deal with part 5 tomorrow. May the good Lord bless you, and cheers for now.